a memorial to the victims on the corner of Sahara Avenue and Las Vegas Boulevard. Hillary Swift with the New York Times. Las Vegas. Mary Lou Danley, the girlfriend of the gunman in the Las Vegas mass shooting, is expected to return to the United States from the Philippines for questioning, a federal law enforcement official said on Tuesday. The authorities are scouring the personal and financial history of the gunman, Stephen Paddock, 64, just days after one of the deadliest mass shootings in the United States, which left 59 people dead, including the gunman, and about 500 others injured. The federal official said Mr. Paddock wired thousands of dollars to the Philippines and the FBI was scrutinizing the transaction. 12 rifles the gunman had in his hotel suite on Sunday were outfitted with a bump stock, a device that would enable them to fire hundreds of rounds per minute, an agent with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives said at a news conference late Tuesday. The police received the first call about shots being fired at 1:08 p.m. Sunday and Mr. Paddock stopped shooting at 1:19 p.m., around the time security guards approached his 32nd-floor luxury suite in the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino. Mr. Paddock had placed one camera inside his hotel room, over the peephole facing the hallway, and two outside his room, including one on a service cart. "I anticipate he was looking for anybody coming to take him into custody," Sheriff Joseph Lombardo of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department said. Jill A. Snyder, a special agent in charge for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, said that 47 firearms, rifles, shotguns and pistols had been recovered from the hotel suite and at two Nevada properties Mr. Paddock owned. The weapons were purchased in California, Nevada, Texas and Utah, Ms. Snyder said. Under-Sheriff Kevin McMahill confirmed the authenticity of leaked photographs of the deceased gunman, with a revolver by his side, and of his hotel suite, showing ammunition and rifles. An internal investigation has been opened into the release of the photos, he said. Investigators also were looking into whether Mr. Paddock had planned an earlier attack in Las Vegas before deciding to target the concert on Sunday night, according to a law enforcement official who was not authorized to discuss the matter publicly and spoke on condition of anonymity. Sheriff Lombardo said all but 3 of the victims had been identified as of Tuesday afternoon. These are some of their stories. Mr. Paddock had multiple semi-automatic rifles, weapons that fire a single round with each pull of the trigger. A fully automatic weapon, like a machine gun, will quickly fire round after round with a single pull of the finger, until the user releases the trigger or empties the magazine. Fully automatic weapons, tightly regulated by federal law since the 1930s, are much rarer than semi-automatic ones. Military versions of assault rifles often have a setting for fully automatic fire, but the versions made for the civilian market do not. The rapid fire heard on recordings of Las Vegas shooting suggested a fully automatic weapon, and police officers called it that on radio traffic. But replacing a standard rifle stock, the part that rests against the shoulder, with a bump stock allows a semi-automatic rifle to fire at a rate comparable to a fully automatic rifle, much faster than a human user can pull and release the trigger. Bump stocks are legal and inexpensive, with some versions advertised for $99. A standard stock is firmly fixed to the rifle, but a bump stock allows the body of the rifle to slide a short distance back and forth, harnessing the recoil energy of each shot. The shooter does not move the trigger finger. Instead, the weapon bounces, or bumps, rapidly between shoulder and finger. In 2013, Senator Dianne Feinstein of California proposed outlawing bump stocks, but Congress has not acted on her proposal. She proposed a ban again on Tuesday. Washington is divided on gun laws. President Trump on Tuesday called Mr. Paddock a sick man, a demented man, adding that we are dealing with a very, very sick individual. He also said that there would be some sort of discussion about gun legislation, but was not specific. "We will be talking about gun laws as time goes by," Mr. Trump said as he prepared to leave Washington for hurricane-battered Puerto Rico. On Tuesday, congressional Democrats asked their Republican counterparts to establish a special committee to investigate gun violence, and called for them to retract legislation that would deregulate the sale of gun silencers. Read more from our reporters in Washington. The president is scheduled to visit Las Vegas on Wednesday. Investigators at the site of the shooting in Las Vegas on Tuesday. Eric Thayer for the New York Times. The police continued to block some traffic along the southern end of the Strip on Tuesday evening as they combed over the concert site, which was littered with lawn chairs, backpacks and other personal belongings fans left behind as they fled. The venue was effectively frozen in time, with the stage still intact just the way it had been when the shooting began, and signs beckoning "Come on in" at the entrance. A handful of flowers and red heart balloons had been placed on the median. Most of the people killed in the shooting died on the concert grounds, the police said. Although many witnesses gathered in the intersection of Reno Avenue and Las Vegas Boulevard on Monday, by Tuesday they had been replaced with dozens of television cameras from all over the world. Audio reveals a frantic search for the gunman. Recordings of police communications, captured by Broadcastify.com and some individuals, offer a moment-to-moment account of how officers responded to the first reports of gunfire. The police eventually pinpointed a suite in the Mandalay Bay Hotel as the source of the shots, and they gathered in the stairwell just outside the gunman's door. Explore how it unfolded with this timeline. Officers found an arsenal in the gunman's hotel room. At least 23 firearms, including a handgun, were found in Mr. Paddock's hotel suite, according to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Sheriff Joseph Lombardo of the police department said Mr. Paddock used multiple rifles during the attack. Stephen Paddock smashed windows in his suite at the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino on Sunday before shooting at the concertgoers below. Hillary Swift for the New York Times. A federal law enforcement official earlier said 2 rifles were outfitted with scopes and set up on tripods in front of 2 big windows. Another official said that among the weapons were AR-15 style assault rifles. Both officials spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to divulge details of the investigation. Sheriff Lombardo said that Mr. Paddock brought at least 10 suitcases into his hotel room over a period of time. The sheriff said that Mr. Paddock fired through his hotel room door at security guards, striking one in the leg. The guard is still alive, he said. SWAT officers went in after the guard was shot. In addition to the weapons at the hotel, the sheriff said the police retrieved 19 firearms, as well as explosives, several thousand rounds of ammunition and electronic devices from Mr. Paddock's home in Mesquite, Nev. Paddock raised no suspicions at store where he bought firearms. The investigation into Mr. Paddock's gun arsenal led investigators to New Frontier Armory, a large North Las Vegas dealer, distributor and manufacturer of firearms. David M. Fumiglietti, the company's president, issued a statement on Tuesday confirming that Mr. Paddock purchased several rifles and shotguns from the business last spring, all at the same time. It's not uncommon for customers to do this to save money on background check fees, Mr. Fumiglietti said. The firearms he purchased did not leave our store capable of what we've seen and heard in the video without modification, he said. They were not fully automatic firearms, nor were they modified in any way, legally or illegally, when they were purchased from us, Mr. Fumiglietti said that nothing about Mr. Paddock raised red flags with the store's sales clerk. On the contrary, according to Mr. Fumiglietti, Mr. Paddock seemed to be interested in competitive shooting, asking the clerk a lot of questions about 3-gun shooting matches, an increasingly popular sport in which players use a rifle, a shotgun and a pistol. He just seemed like a normal guy, said Mr. Fumiglietti, whose store has been the target of hate mail, threatening phone calls and fake reviews since the shooting. We obviously did not sell him these firearms with the intent that he would use them to hurt anyone in any way. On Monday, a Mesquite, Nev, gun dealer, Guns Guitars, acknowledged having sold 2 rifles and a handgun to Mr. Paddock. Like the purchases at Frontier, those were cleared by state and federal background checks. The gunman was not an avid gun guy at all, said one of his brothers. Mr. Paddock, 64, was described as a high-flying gambler who lived in a quiet retirement community and played golf. Officials said he had no significant criminal history and drew little attention to himself. Investigators are trying to piece together his financial history to search for clues that could help determine what set him off. Stephen Paddock. In a photo provided by his brother Eric Paddock via Associated Press, Mr. Paddock often bet heavily at the major casino hotels, and his girlfriend, Ms. Danley, 62, who was out of the country at the time of the shooting, had worked for some of those hotels. They lived in Mesquite, Nev, 80 miles northeast of Las Vegas, and he also owned a home in Reno. Mr. Paddock worked for the federal government for roughly 10 years, from 1975 to 1985, a spokeswoman for the Federal Office of Personnel Management confirmed on Tuesday. Investigators unearthed multiple job applications, with Mr. Paddock's fingerprints on file, as part of records reflecting his employment as a letter carrier for the Postal Service, as an IRS agent and as an auditor of defense contracts. Details about Mr. Paddock's later career and livelihood were sparse, aside from observations by neighbors and family members that he routinely gambled large amounts of money. He was a wealthy guy, playing video poker, who went cruising all the time and lived in a hotel room, a brother, Eric Paddock, said. Mr. Paddock and his 3 brothers were raised by their mother, who told the children their father had died when in fact he was in prison, Eric Paddock said. Mr. Paddock's father was convicted in 1961 of committing a series of bank robberies and was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He escaped from La Tuna Federal Prison in Texas in 1968 and became a used car dealer and bingo parlor operator in Oregon. In an interview with CBS, Eric Paddock said that his brother Stephen was not an avid gun guy at all. The fact that he had those kind of weapons is just, where the hell did he get automatic weapons, he asked. I've never been that scared in my life, said one witness. The police estimated that when the shooting began, there were 22,000 people at the Harvest Festival, listening to Jason Aldean, the final act of the three-day event. Video of the shooting captured 9 seconds of continuous, rapid fire, followed by 37 seconds of silence from the weapon and panicked screaming from the crowd. Gunfire then erupted again and again in extended bursts. Some concertgoers thought the noise was fireworks, but as it became clear what was happening, people fled, many of them unsure where the shots were coming from, or where they should go. Everyone was running, you could see people getting shot, said Gail Davis, one of the witnesses. I've never been that scared in my life, she added. To have this happen, I can't wrap my mind around it. Video from the shooting showed Mr. Aldean running off the stage as the gunfire erupted. Harrowing video of mass shooting during a Jason Aldean set of Route 91 Harvest Festival in Las Vegas. Mandalay Bay picked out Twitter.com Gaxbic, Evan Schreiber at Schreiber even October 2, 2017. Within minutes, a police officer on the scene radioed to report cases of gunshot wounds to the chest, legs, terminal arteries at the medical tent. A few minutes later, an officer said, "We're making tourniquets out of blankets, but I'm running out of blankets here." Patients surged into Sunrise Hospital and Medical Center, where at least 124 met the criteria for trauma activation, said Dr. Jeff Moravsky, the hospital's chief medical officer. They include patients with single and multiple gunshot wounds to the head, face, chest, body, arms and, in one case, a finger. Reporting was contributed by Ken Belson, Jennifer Medina and John Elligan from Las Vegas, Julie Turkowitz from Mesquite, Nev. Eileen Sullivan and Rebecca Ruiz from Washington, Adam Goldman, Richard Perez Pina, Stephanie Saul, Niraj Chokshi and Matthew Hogg from New York, Liam Stack from London, Russell Goldman from Hong Kong and CJ Chivers.